Good.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Another episode, episode 12. Can't believe it already. Of Ticket to Gamehendge, the podcast where we discuss all things Phish related, but more specifically, how to get your friends and family to love our favorite band, Phish. The community is all a buzz. Everywhere I read, everywhere I look, everybody's talking about the Beacon Jams, night one. So we were just chatting a little bit. Early reactions, I mean, great. But I guess first thing, if you miss Friday night, it sounds like the only way to really hear it is on the app, unless you're somewhat savvy, because it sounds like the videos aren't going to stay up, which is a bit of a bummer. And so you didn't get to see any of it for the video,
That's
right?
not true. I saw the start of Blaze On, and then and then my son really needed to turn up his Steven Scherer video for it was only the 36th time that day. I think that's one of the reasons. My wife is into Phish now, because we've heard, because kids have that habit of playing like the same thing like 30,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
So
but so do Phish fans.
That's what I mean. So they're training my wife, right?
Yeah. So I think I saw the first I want to say 45 minutes or so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and again, I tuned out because it was Friday night. I had to work Saturday morning, assuming I'd be able to watch it on Saturday or Sunday over the weekend, assumed incorrectly. So I'm really enjoyed, and I've since listened to the entire show. I assume you listened to it since then, right?
Yep.
Early thoughts?
I mean, listen, I'm so grateful. Like it's amazing that this is happening. Sure. I really like when Trey plays his own songs with his own band. I think it sounds incredible. And I really, it strikes me every time I hear Tab, because I listen to so much Phish. When I don't hear Mike and Paige and Fishman, you just really respect, not that. And again, this is not a shot at, Tony and the boys playing with Trey. They're incredible, but frig, man, like you're just blown away. You're blown away by how awesome those guys are, and yeah. But yes, man, it's awesome.
Yeah, really good. I think it was really neat how they had the stage all set up with the theater in the background. They were playing to the back of the stage, which I thought was really, really neat. It sort of played tricks on me for a second, because at first I tuned in on my phone and I was like, wait, what? What's going on with this?
I did a double take too.
Yeah.
I did a double take too.
But yeah, I mean, it was evident from the 45 minutes that I saw that Trey was loving it. I mean, you could see the joy coming out of him. He's obviously right at home performing with other musicians. Really, really enjoying it. Really seemed very flattered and genuinely flattered with the comments and things that were coming through that he was calling out.
Yeah.
His, the amount of times that he went, "Aw," when somebody was saying something nice about it. I want to talk about Stash in a second, because that's one of the songs that really sticks out from that first show for me, and makes me ask a lot of questions about the 7 upcoming shows. But did you hear the story about Stash that came through in the comments? Like, guys going to the bathroom. I've never been in that situation, but that's pretty funny.
The other thing that really stood out was how much I love hearing his stories. Like it's almost like the secret vault of like Phish stuff that we've all like wanted to hear for so long, right?
Sure.
So I just really appreciate when he talks. I'm like, oh man, I love this stuff.
Yeah, it'd be great if they could do like a one-off VH1 storytellers with Trey to come back and do that stuff, right? That's one of the early things that attracted me to Dave Matthews, was his ability to tell some stories, more specifically in the acoustic shows with Tim Reynolds, but adding a bit of a different element to it. One thing that really kind of not messed me up, but I guess the sound quality was great. Like, you could hear a mouse fart in that theater.
Yep.
You could hear the rattling of the snare. It was so quiet, and it was so strange when a song would end and it was just silence.
I know.
We're so conditioned and trained to hear the crowd and to hear that stuff, for it to be it's a studio recording and there's going to be silence, but when it's a live recording and it's silence, it's a bit weird. It kind of reminded me when I listened to the Dead 72 Europe
from
stuff, right? Because it was really just
recordings,
soundboards. but yeah, I thought the songs were really really good, and a nice little variety in there too. Really surprised to hear in law Josie Wales,
Oh, Trey loves that song,
which
right? Like he
yeah,
loves that song.
and that played at the show we were at in 2000. And I remember, I don't know if you would remember this, but I remember that show in 2000 when In Law Josie Wales was being played. You turned to me and you said, "I can't believe how good this sounds right now." Do you remember that? Maybe not. No,
Sounds
no.
like something I would say,
Yeah,
but I don't remember that specific moment. No.
yeah. I'd have to look up to see the last time that song was played, but it's only been played a handful of times. And yeah, I thought it sounded really, really good. Um, but honestly, I think I came out of listening to that show and watching part of it with more questions than anything. Like, what did the next seven look like? We didn't know, or I didn't know anyway, going into it, if he was going to be alone, if he was going to have players with him, what that was going to look. The question, could we, and reading a lot of the comments, could we see Phish in this capacity? Trey's come out and said no, that's not what he sees. But if you read comments online, what people are talking about, that's what everybody wants. And I think that's what it made me want even more. I would take that above nothing, And so I wonder if that's possible.
Well, that's funny because you read, right? Oh, so and so, they're in New York City, spottings.
Yeah. New York City, yeah. 15 million people. Come on. Yeah, what do you think the likelihood is that we'll see either some members of Phish or full-on Phish show in the next few weeks with these?
I think again, this is right now, I think the likelihood that we're going to see members of Phish is high. I think I'm going to be absolute with my last answer and say we are not going to see a Phish show. Not yet. Not yet. I'm not, maybe for Halloween, no, actually, he's going to be there for Halloween, maybe.
Yeah, they're playing for Friday the 30th. So somebody online that said, like, on 10:30, at 10:30, Phish is going to come out and play a Halloween set. But I don't know. Nothing would be better, but again...
You know what I would do if I was them? What I would do is I would dress up the performers, and I would open with a Phish song, and then I would unmask them to see that it is not Phish.
I see.
Yeah.
You'd be able to tell before they took the mask off just by hearing the song, though. That surprise would be ruined pretty quick, I would think.
Well,
right?
I mean,
They're so distinct.
Like Tony Markella sits in a chair and looks nothing body composition-wise like Mike Gordon, right? So...
Right, yeah, and it's really, really tough to hide Mandy Patinkin in there, too. I mean, it's like doppelganger. Right?
For sure.
It looks just like Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else to call out from, but yeah, it sounded really, really good. Thought the song list was really, really good. Five tracks from Lonely Trip. Nice to hear those sort of explored.
I did want to say something because one of the things that I find amazing. This is the other thing that stuck. The things that stood out in my mind was how much I missed the boys, how grateful I was that this was happening, how much I missed the boys, how happy Trey and Anastasio is to play music live, and how awesome already, because one of the things that people were talking shit about the Lonely Trip album was, none of these songs are going to translate well live.
Right.
Like, come on, man. They sounded awesome.
Yeah. They sounded really, really good.
They sounded amazing.
Yeah, really, really good. So yeah, I mean, if anything, I think I'm just more excited about what's to come. I like the little deviation on Stash, the nice little sort of, it felt like I was in like a hotel lounge bar or something while that was being played, very, very different vibe. And I'm curious to see if they'll, change it up with some other tunes over the next few weeks. So Friday night, I'm on vacation starting Saturday, so I'll be staying up late Friday night and watching this show, which I'm excited about. And hopefully more surprises, and hopefully a good mix in the set list. I don't know how many repeats we're going to see or how much he's going to be pushing the Lonely Trip, but hey, it's all better than nothing.
So when Trey posted about, hey, what do y'all want to hear?
Yeah,
I was on the ground laughing. Somebody requested "Wet Ass Pussy" by what's her name?
That's what WAP stands for.
You didn't know that?
Well, we were talking about last week, and again, I wasn't really going to do any extra work and look into that song at all. But you probably, I think you brought it up.
Imagine that getting busted out. It'd be amazing.
Well, they're capable of just about anything. You never know. Cool. So I want to shift gears a little bit, and I
Uh-huh.
wrote down for this topic. This is the best part.
Okay.
So, sort of inspired by my 2-year-old. So my 2-year-old Charlie, the female Charlie, her name's Charlotte. She's going to be at Phish shows with us. Like she loves music.
There's
She
fish.
jumps around and she
There's
gets
fish
into it.
shows to go to at that
And
time.
she was watching this video on YouTube the other day, and one of her favorite movies is the Trolls sequel,
Yeah.
Trolls World Tour.
World tour. Yeah. Yeah.
And she's watching this, yeah, and she's watching the video of the end song where the song I think is called "Sing," and she's watching it. She turns to me and she goes, "Daddy, watch this part." And I come over, and it's all it was. And she's looking at me and looking at me back and forth. And when the part happened, it was this little like guitar solo that Queen Barb does. And she was all excited about it. And I was like, oh wow. Like it got me thinking about how, and we've kind of touched on this in the past about the anticipation within the music, how I've traditionally listened to music and what songs kind of become my favorite songs.
Mm-hmm.
So the first song I can think of that this happened in my life, it's not a Phish song, because I would have been 12, I think, when it got popular again, is Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. So when Wayne's World was a big deal, that was the big single. And I remember getting through that song when it would play on Much Music, dealing with the first part of the song to get to the what I would call the fun part. I see a little skip,
Yeah.
that part. And that was the only part of the song that I really, really liked, was that funny, goofy part that was sort of made even more famous by Wayne's World. But then over time, listening to that song more, you really come to appreciate the other parts of the song. And you appreciate the anticipation and the build up to that part that you really, really like. And I figured that that's how I really sort of listened to music over the last 20 years. Is I don't necessarily fall in love with the entire song. I like a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wait for that part to come, and then I learn to love the rest of it to get to that main part of the song.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just thought that was interesting how she was already cueing in on a little part of the song that she loved. She's willing to get through it. And I'm thinking of dozens of songs that are like that for me. And the very first Phish song that I ever heard was Yen in your car.
Yep.
And you specifically pointed out that boy, man, God shit part, and it's I think I've come to really appreciate the buildup that goes into those types of songs. Another one that comes up that I played the other day and my girls went nuts for it was LCD Sound System's Dance Yourself Clean.
Yep.
Do you know that song?
Yep.
Yeah. And when it gets going, and it's one of those songs was on in the background, and I heard the part that really kicks in and the more the techno beat gets going, and I loved it. But then subsequently, when I play back and play that song more and more, I would love the build up and love the intro to get to that point, to really kind of set it off and get you to that peak. You know what I mean?
Are you at the point now where you just listen to music because you enjoy it? Like it's interesting, right? Like you're right. I mean, I think that exists with everything, right? Like you can't. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but yeah, I think that's the way everyone listens to music. I think there's certain parts you're like, oh man, I can't wait to hear this part. This is so good.
Right.
But then you just get to the point where you're like, I'm just gonna listen because this is like you're just happy listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would say so for the most part. I mean, there's obviously the odd thing that comes on, or the music playlist they play at my store that can be really annoying because you hear the same songs every day. But yeah, I think over the past little while, I've just been more in for the ride, and I think Phish has sort of done that for me.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because now when I think Phish taught me how to listen to music, because like like I said before, I listen to an absurd amount of music. It's very varied and different, and I just listen. Like I just listen. I'm not listening for certain parts. I'm not trying to like create this emotional payoff. The emotional payoff is just listening to the music and being able to experience another human who's trying to communicate with me.
Right. Yeah, and we were talking last week, or at least I was talking about some of the differences between Dave and Phish live. Yep. And I think I was thinking about that a lot over the past week, and I think listening to Dave live is almost like watching episodes of your favorite TV show. You've seen it before. You know the good parts. You know it's coming. They're your favorites. You still enjoy it, even though it's live. It's predictable about what's going to happen. Versus, I think listening to live Phish, especially when you get into 2.0 jams, it's more like watching a movie by your favorite director for the first time. You know you're going
Yeah.
to like it. You know it's going to be good, but you don't know where the story is necessarily going to go. Yet you're comfortable within that scope.
Oh, dude,
And I found,
it's even more powerful than that. I agree with that analogy, but with Phish, you're kind of partaking in the creative experience, right? Because they're kind of, like your energy and how you show up, like influences what they're going to play and what they're going to do and how they feel.
mhm,
Right?
mhm,
Like when you think about it, it's fucking ridiculous.
yeah. Hey, how set are the set lists to your knowledge? Like, obviously,
For
they seem to
Phish,
have the ability to just pick up and go into whatever. But I would imagine going into a show, there's a few songs that they know they're going to play that they rehearsed. Thinking of like your fluff heads and your longer tunes that maybe they would need to sort of tune up before. But how free flowing is it really? Do you think?
so I mean, I think vary, to be honest. I mean, I think when they're
Mhm.
rehearsing, they probably go through some songs that they're probably thinking about. Like, I mean, I'm
Mhm.
just going based on what I've heard Trey say, right? So he,
Yeah.
you know, and it's interesting. I saw an older video, when he was, I think, where he was talking about somebody asked him what he regretted, and he regretted that people were showing up because Phish has this reputation of being a good time, and they're not coming to listen to the music,
Mm.
right? And he was like, once upon a time, like we would end the show and then we would rehearse after, and like I would go back to my hotel room and I would like start writing out like charts for the next show, like it was
Mm.
like an obsession, right? So I mean, I honestly think that the level of practice that's gone into this band, we don't even understand,
I agree.
like as a collective band. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think they have a general idea of certain songs that are going to show up on tour. I bet you some of them don't, but they're obviously
Mm.
rehearsed and prepared. Like you said, like Fluffhead, like that's a complicated song. There's a lot of parts, and if you haven't played Fluffhead in like 5 or 6 years, you're probably gonna have to practice it once or twice just so you can remember all the parts.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a really good example. I know on I forget what show, but the famous show where Mike said no because the crowd was chanting for Fluffhead,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Mike actually said yes. He wanted to play it, but it's a really complicated song. He was willing to go through it, but obviously Trey didn't want to that night. So yeah, questions that I always have that I don't know if we'll ever get the answer to. It's kind of like what we were saying about the little storytelling. It's like a peek behind the curtain a little bit.
Well, it's
They're,
also
they're very good at giving us a taste, but not the full
well, it's
scoop.
also fun to debate about, right? It's also fun to
Yeah.
talk about, right? Like one of the things that makes Formula One interesting is I'm going to be like, hey, do you think that if Verstappen and Hamilton had an equal car and raced 100 times, right? Like it's fun to debate, it's fun to talk about,
Hmm. I
right? So
agree. I,
they don't want us to know because it kind of
yeah.
takes the magic out of it, right? I also know 100% that there's been times when songs haven't been prepped and Trey's like, all right, here we go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can. In fact, the Ruby Waves that big famous 38-minute Ruby Waves wasn't planned. He just
Right.
started playing it, or even when they played Ruby Waves at the show we went to in Toronto, it was the first time they had played it, and they were going, and the other guys were like, "What?" Phish and Trey knew what was happening, but Mike and Paige had to kind of jump in and figure it out.
Right. So
It really lends credit to how skilled they are to be able to do that.
well, not just that, like the trust, that they have in one another, and how
Mm.
important the energy of the show is, right? Because Trey's like, fuck it, I'm gonna risk flubbing one because
Hmm.
it calls for this right now.
Yeah.
That's called leadership,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, you remind me of a little scene in Bittersweet Motel when he's on the phone and he's talking to somebody, Trey, and I forget who it was, but they missed a change the night prior, and he goes, oh, why? He's pissed. Why? Because we missed a change. He's like, oh, such an idiot. He goes, I don't care. The crowd was jamming. They were loving it. For him that. He goes, I couldn't give two shits if we missed 10 changes. The crowd was into it. We are loving it. And that's what it's all about.
Dude,
So, uh,
there is so much wisdom there, right there, right? It's
mhm.
you can see what the most important thing is for them. It's the song and it's the energy and that everyone's having a good time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not the technicality of it, not the fact that, not to say that those things aren't important. I mean, just listen to the music. They're obviously super technical, but
Mhm.
that's secondary, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Um, And speaking of having fun, so we'll shift gears again a little bit. It's now mid-October. Canadian Thanksgiving is behind us, so we look ahead to Halloween. P.S. By the way, I couldn't really find a ton of information as to why Canadian Thanksgiving is a month earlier or a month and a half earlier than the American Thanksgiving, other than it was just declared in 1957 to celebrate the harvest, and maybe weather had something to do with it. We're in Canada. Late November is just way too cold for Thanksgiving,
It's
perhaps.
probably the same rule book that somebody wrote that says our football should have 3 downs, a yard off the ball, this ridiculous balloon for a ball.
110 yards long. What are we, 65 yards wide?
We're running a 9 pattern. We got first and goal on the 1. We're running a 9 pattern because you got like
12 guys on the field. You can score a point for missing a field goal. Yeah, for those of you that don't know anything about Canadian football, that know American, look it up. It's a bit of a wild thing. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Halloween costumes and the Halloween shows. I'm gonna put a top 3 out there. Okay. So I've got them all listed here. Every single Halloween costume that's been done. Do you know how many Phish has done?
No.
If you had to guess. Guess.
15.
10.
Wow.
10. 4 in 1.0, none in 2.0, and 6 since 3.0. So let's see how well you know them here. First one, 1994. You know it?
No.
Beatles, White Album.
Oh, the covers.
Covers, yeah. Sorry. What were you thinking I was thinking? Because they call it the Halloween
how
costume.
they dressed up, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So we're talking the Halloween show.
So
Halloween
the Beatles
sets.
was the first one, 94. And then it was Quadrophenia.
Yep.
In 95. And what year was the next one? Remind me.
96.
96. Okay. That was that the Talking Heads?
You got it. Talking Heads, Remain in Light.
Yep.
And then they skipped a year. 97 didn't have one. 98 did.
98 was
they say this band inspired a generation of bands. Thousands of bands came out of this band.
Oh,
that they weren't necessarily.
It was the Velvet Underground.
You got it.
Yes.
Velvet Underground's loaded. So those are the 4. So the Beatles and the Who were done by vote by fans, right? Through the mailing list. They were given, they didn't say that they would play the top pick show, but they would choose from some of the top pick shows. So that's what they did for the Beatles and the Who. The Talking Heads, they decided to do it on their own. They didn't vote. They just kind of went and did it because that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Shorter album, shorter songs, spent more time on it, and the quality of the show was better to those.
Have you, as an aside, I'm sure you've heard those 3 albums. Have you listened to that Do you listen to the Talking Heads?
Not so much.
It's quite an album, man.
Okay, I'll check it out.
It's worth
Maybe
actually listening to, yeah.
On the way home tonight.
It's very weird.
Because actually where I am in my live listening, I'm catching up through 2009. I'm on October 31st, 2009. I just finished the first set. So on my way home tonight from work, I'll be listening to 2009's. Do you know which album they did in 2009?
That's Exile on Main Street, correct?
You got it. Yeah. Rolling Stones. 2010. It's a bit more obscure, this one.
This is where it starts to get fuzzy.
Yeah, I think it does for a lot of fans. 2010 was Little Feat's Waiting for Columbus.
Okay, because this was like my dark period now, right? This is where like...
Yeah, I was off the train.
Yeah. I wasn't off. I wasn't fully off. I just wasn't paying attention as much as I should have been.
Gotcha. 2013 marked a pretty big departure, and that's when they did Wingsuit, which a lot of those songs later became Fuego. So they did a costume of themselves, set as future Phish.
Yeah.
I pulled a little article about these shows, and I liked what they had said about Wingsuit. After taking a few years off from Halloween shows in 2013, Phish returned with a huge surprise. While the band returned to Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City for the show, the band chose to cover their future selves for the evening. Eschewing the traditional cover of a classic rock album, Phish performed a full set of material that they were about to record in the studio. What resulted was a full set of brand new material, much of which went on to be included on their 2014 album Fuego. 2013's Halloween set was well played, but many in the audience were let down by Phish's unexpected decision to change up their tradition. Love it or hate it, the Wingsuit set signaled a shift in Phish's musical direction, choosing to focus more on original material and less on incorporating covers into their shows. In fact, many fans took their choice to cover themselves as a sign that the musical costume was being put to bed by the band entirely. The highlight of the night was easily the funky Wombat, which featured a slew of dancers and a totally random guest appearance by the inimitable Abe Vigoda, who was dressed like a wombat for Halloween because Of course. Yeah, so definitely a switch there, and that's where it kind of got foggy for me. 2014, the year after, do you know what they did?
Yeah, it was 2014. Was that the haunted house?
Yeah, the chilling, thrilling sounds of the haunted
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
You have a pet cat with that female voice that comes in. Really, really unique there. And then 2016, Bowie's The
David
Rise and
Bowie.
Fall of
Yeah,
Z.
yeah. David
Yeah,
Bowie.
and then 2018, one of
Casbah.
my favorites, I Rock by Casbah Vox. So 10 of them, pretty incredible. What would you put as your top three of those 10 right there?
Okay, that's a really good question. So my favorite one is the White Album because that just came out and like that was just awesome, right? Because I was
28
unaware
songs.
I was unaware that it was up to a vote at that time, right?
Hmm.
So like you hear this and you're like, what? And I love the Beatles,
Yeah.
right? So I'd have to put the Beatles. I love Bowie, so I'd have to put Bowie up there, and I'd have to put Casbah. Actually, I'd put Casbah
Mm.
Voxed at the bottom. My least favorite, if I had to rank them, you're not asking, but if I had to do the least favorite one, I don't know, man. I love some of the songs now, but the Halloween one was not my favorite one.
The chilling, thrilling sounds of the
Yeah.
haunted house.
Now,
Yeah, there's some good tunes on there, but overall,
100%.
top to bottom. Yeah,
100%.
I agree.
But here's the thing, like to be as strong and to say that like I'm disappointed because Phish is coming at me with new material is a
Yeah.
that's way overstated. Like I expect it from the band, right? And kind of going like to tie some themes together. Like I just like listening to the music. Like it can all be new now. I'm having a good time.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. So number one, yeah, for sure. So number one, Beatles. Number two, you said was Bowie,
For me, yeah.
and then number three
Yeah.
was which again?
Casbah.
Casbah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You?
Okay. I would say
And
my
watch,
number one.
I'll change my mind when you put the question up. It'll be different. I'll think about it. I'll be like, shit.
That's fair. Cool. I would say my number one would be The Who.
Yep.
I love The Who. Love The Who. Number two, Casbah Boxed. I'm so impressed by the scale of that.
Oh, it's amazing.
Coming out of August that didn't exist, and then by October 31st,
And they
polished
have
album.
and some of those songs are some of my favorite songs right now.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really good and fun too, right? Like a really upbeat, fun album.
Awesome.
And then number three, I think I'm gonna go with the Stones.
Yeah,
I love Exile on
So
Main
do I.
Street.
So
It's a
do
good
I.
one. I mean, it's tough because there's some really, really good stuff there. Really, really good. So I'm really hoping for something this year. Hoping, not expecting, but really, really hoping. We'll see. I don't know.
You're the
That's everything that
you probably don't remember, but on the way to go see Dave Matthews in Buffalo, you played a lot of Who. Like Rochelle and I were in the backseat. We listened to the Who a lot, and that was a band that I haven't. You know, they're not. I respect the Who. It's just not something that's my first choice to listen to.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't go back to them all that often, but when I do hear a Who song, I love it. Like I get excited. I'm kind of fascinated by that band. I'm fascinated by that whole era. I mean, think about like the Who and the Stones and the Beatles happening at the same time, competing against one another in a very healthy way. Those three bands, I don't think a lot of people really, maybe they do, but they really pushed each other to newer heights. Like they were really trying to outdo one another with different techniques and different things. And I think it made all three of those bands that much better. I mean, if they were going it alone, they might not have had that drive and that spirit of competition that they actually ended up having.
I agree.
You know, and it's pretty incredible when you think of the music that came out of that time and how much it changed things and how little has changed in rock since. You know, it's I think it's really, really evident. So
I mean, do we want to open up the Rock is Dead can of worms right now, or are we going to save that for like another episode?
Well, you've actually hinted at it a couple of times. I think a couple of episodes ago, you essentially said there's really not much that's coming out that's new, right? What people that are into rock now are getting into stuff that you and I have been listening to our whole lives, or even since before we were around. So, yeah, there's not a lot. You talked about Greta Van Fleet last week, as a matter of fact, in that vein. You know, it's good, it's fun, but it's unoriginal. It's not going to take you to a new place.
No,
you know,
I agree.
And,
I mean, if we beat it over the head, we don't have to beat it over the head more. So,
yeah, cool. Yeah, it's pretty much everything that I had this week. It's been a pretty interesting week. Just thinking about how I've been listening to the songs and thinking about those moments, those build up moments, and how everything around those moments is what I've come to appreciate. I've come to appreciate the journey rather than the destination. And yeah, there's yeah, it was just so funny to see my 2-year-old kind of doing the same thing with the song that she liked. She had her favorite part. She called it out. She was anticipating. She was waiting for my reaction to hear that part with her. I was like, okay, all right, this is what it's all about. I guess this is how we all do it. So, yeah, excited for Friday. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
What do you think for Friday? Do you think any surprises?
I'm hoping for a completely different set list. Like I'm hoping, I don't want to hear any repeats. If we do, we do. With the new album, who knows what that'll go, or what it'll go like. I wouldn't mind a slightly separate or slightly different cast of characters, some different players with them. I don't know. I kind of don't know how to answer. I just want it to be a little bit different yet the same, and just some different songs.
Yeah.
I think I'm going into these with low expectations, and anything above that happens, I'll be happy with. Again, it's new music. It's something different to listen to. It makes my appreciation for Phish grow. It makes my hunger to hear more new Phish that much more. Makes me miss them a lot, to be honest. So, but it's all good.
So, remember a couple of weeks ago we were talking about, something just popped in my mind. We were talking about like, what's your favorite era, and like the songs written in that era, right? Like 3.
Like by Phish or just
by Phish. So we had like 1.0 songs and like 3.0 songs. For some reason, I forget that Kasvat Vox. By the way, there's a bus stop right outside of my office. All I can see is butt crack right now. It's amazing. Some guy's sitting down.
Butt crack, yeah. Dan Aykroyd.
If for whatever reason, it doesn't feel like Kasvat Vox is Phish, right? It actually feels like a different band wrote those songs, but those are technically Phish 3.0 songs.
Yeah, and that's the intent. I mean, it's crazy that they have the ability to go and do that. I mean, other bands have done something similar. Even other artists have done a complete departure. I don't know if you would remember this in the mid '90s when Garth Brooks did an album as a character called Chris Gaines.
No.
So this was like a big thing that flopped. He was at the height of his career, and he wrote this album, a different kind of song, almost like an emo rock kind of thing. And he created this character called Chris Gaines, and he had like long like hair, bangs kind of covering his eyes, very emo looking, for lack of a better term. And it came out and it kind of flopped. Like it really, really backfired on him.
Garth Brooks must have confused musicianship with what a modern country audience is looking for, which is entertainment.
Big time. They did not know how to handle that album. And I'm sure there's some good songs on there. He's an incredible songwriter, of course, but it just wasn't well received. Versus something like this, I think maybe that's a difference from Phish's fans, is they're a lot more open-minded about the types of music that they're going to hear, because you go to a Phish show, you hear everything. You hear a little bit of everything.
But it's type of,
I love
it's
the
type of
album.
Audience, right? Like it's trained like that, right? Like this is the difference between entertainment. This is like going to see Barry Manilow in Vegas, and then Barry comes out and like does, plays a Ramones album and like does punk rock. Like, people are going to be pissed.
It would be amazing.
Right?
Barry Manilow playing the Ramones. Good example. Yeah, it's very opposite. But the whole Cosmot Vox thing, the fact that Curveball got canceled, they wanted to do something, and that turned into Cosmot Vox, right? They wanted to make up for the lack of the festival that year, which is for it to come together.
Which is disappointing when people are disappointed by Wingsuit. Like, I'm not gonna lie and pretend like when I first heard it, Fuego was my like favorite album, but those songs are awesome. They're I like them now.
Yeah, for sure. And time keeps changing that stuff, right? The more you hear those songs, the more they play them live, the more you create the experiences that go along with it, the better they're going to get.
That's why I think it's so important that, already songs that I thought were okay when I heard them on Trey's album, I'm like, oh yeah, this song's awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's happening,
sure.
You're like, yes.
Yeah. I wonder if we'll see any covers. And again, all questions to be answered. I'm sure we'll be talking about
week two. I'm calling the surprise this week is going to be new material.
Some new songs, huh?
Yeah.
How many?
Oh, I don't know. If he plays one, I'm
Just
right.
what-
You know.
There you go.
But like, let's
Yeah,
not
that's a
pretend
good point.
like the solo album was the only thing that Trey Anastasia was doing quarantined home alone for 6 months.
Of course. Of course.
Guy
Yeah.
is a machine, man. He's like the Stephen King
Yeah.
of music.
Yeah. So prolific. Again, we've talked about that my brain when it comes to that stuff doesn't really work that way. You disagree, but just the amount of music that just seems to be able to pour out of them.
You are untrained. You are untrained.
Right.
You need to start writing music. If you start writing music, if you're okay with doing something really shitty, but you're going to do it every day, eventually you become less shitty at it. That's all I'm saying. You know, you look at him. You look at. Sorry to interrupt, but you look at him. And you're like, fuck, that's prolific. He's been writing a song a day since he was probably 11 years old.
Right. And you're reminding me of Jerry Seinfeld's technique. He writes every day.
You got
He
it.
sits down and writes every day. And he openly says, most of it's shit.
That's it.
Like, most of it doesn't come to be anything. But if he gets 5 seconds that he can turn into a bit and turn into idea, then it's worth it. But it's cathartic for him to sit down and pour it all out and write it, because that's part of his process. Like, you know, the construction guys, they get up, they go to work every day with their lunch pails. These guys got to do their own version of that. They got to put in all the.
That's why I found Tomo Fujita, my guitar teacher's, his analysis of it so instructive, right? Because in a way, Trey was just repeating all of like the plethora of music that he's listened to up in that point. It was almost like a tribute to like everyone that's inspired him, but like mixed his own way.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. It's incredible stuff. So, all right. So you say new music. I say some different guests, some special guests, or somebody different in there. Maybe we'll both be right. We'll see.
That's why my fingers are crossed. Both right.
Yeah. Maybe they'll change up the look of the theater, some different lighting. Who knows? But either way, yeah. You know, to be living in a time where we can watch that and they can still play, and you know, Twitch, the stream was good.
Oh,
it was all good. So
incredible. I'm glad you figured out the Twitches.
Yeah. I got the Twitches on there. I couldn't get the chat to go away. Like the chat was just.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, I don't think you can get it to go. At least not on the phone. I'll have to try it on my Apple TV and see if that's any better.
It's the way kids communicate, man.
Yeah. I guess that's part of the experience, right? So, yeah, good stuff. We're looking forward to this Friday. Looking forward to chatting with you next week. And I think that's all we have.
See you, buddy.
All right, buddy. Thanks for listening, everybody.